So they told you Trump was a Russian agent. They told you Putin rigged the election. They told you anyone who questioned it was a conspiracy theorist, of course. But it was all a lie. And not just a little lie, a coordinated operation by the CIA, the FBI, and Obama's White House to sabotage a sitting president before he even took office. And now, nearly a decade later, we finally have the proof. Just days ago, Tulsi Gabbard, now Director of National Intelligence, released a bombshell set of declassified documents showing exactly how the Russiagate hoax was born, not in Moscow, but in Washington, D.C. It wasn't a Russian disinformation op. It was American treason. Let's go ahead and take a look. So she says Americans will finally learn the truth about how in 2016 intelligence was politicized and weaponized by the most powerful people in the Obama administration to lay the groundwork for what was essentially a years-long coup against President Donald Trump, subverting the will of the American people and undermining our democratic republic. Here's how. For months preceding the 2016 election, the intelligence community shared a consensus view. Russia lacked the intent and capability to hack U.S. elections. But weeks after President Trump's historic 2016 victory defeating Hillary Clinton, everything changed. On December 8, 2016, IC officials prepared an assessment for the president's daily brief, finding that Russia did not impact recent U.S. election results by conducting cyber attacks on infrastructure. Before it could reach the president, it was abruptly pulled based on new guidance, quote unquote. This key intelligence assessment was never published. The next day, top national security officials, including FBI Director James Comey, CIA Director John Brennan, and DNI James Clapper, gathered at the Obama White House to discuss Russia. Obama directed the IC, which is intelligence community, to create a new intelligence assessment that detailed Russian election meddling, even though it would contradict multiple intelligence assessments released over the previous several months. Obama officials immediately leaned on their allies in the media to advance their falsehoods. Anonymous intelligence community sources leaked classified information to the Washington Post and others that Russia had intervened to hack the election in Trump's favor. On January 6, 2017, just days before President Trump took office, DNI Clapper unveiled the Obama-directed politicized assessment, a gross weaponization of intelligence that laid the groundwork for a years-long coup intended to subvert President Trump's entire presidency. According to whistleblower emails shared with us today, we know Clapper and Brennan used the baseless or discredited Steele dossier as a source to push this false narrative in the intelligence assessment. These documents detail a treasonous conspiracy by officials at the highest levels of the Obama White House to subvert the will of the American people and to usurp the president from fulfilling his mandate. This betrayal concerns every American. The integrity of our democratic republic demands that every person involved be investigated and brought to justice to prevent this from ever happening again. I am providing all documents to the Department of Justice to deliver the accountability that President Trump, his family, and the American people deserve. And then Donald Trump wrote this out. Obama himself manufactured the Russia hoax. Crooked Hillary, Sleepy Joe, and numerous others participated in this. The crime of the century, irrefutable evidence, a major threat to our country. Of course, this is only evidence if you believe the evidence. Some people would say, I think if the shoe were on the other foot, we would say, oh, this was probably fabricated. It's just things to keep in mind. How do we know for sure that this evidence is actual evidence? How do we know it's not fabricated? How do we know it's not curated? But nonetheless, we'll roll with it for now. But here's Donald Trump saying Obama should be prosecuted.
If you look at those papers, they have them stone cold, and it was President Obama. It wasn't lots of people all over the place. It was them too. But the leader of the gang was President Obama, Barack Hussein Obama. Have you heard of him? And except for the fact that he gets shielded by the press for his entire life, that's the one look, he's guilty. It's not a question, I like to say, let's give it time. It's there, he's guilty. This was treason. This was every word you can think of. They tried to steal the election. They tried to obfuscate the election. They did things that nobody's ever even imagined, even in other countries. you've seen some pretty rough countries. This man has seen some pretty rough countries, but you've never seen anything like it. And we have all of the documents. And from what Tulsi told me, she's got thousands of additional documents coming. So President Obama, it was his concept, his idea, but he also got it from crooked Hillary Clinton. Crooked is a $3 bill.
So just to recap this, the original intelligence said Russia did not hack the vote. That finding was buried. A new politicized report based on lies was pushed out instead, and that's what the media used to launch a years-long coup against Trump's presidency. But the question is, now what? What happens next? Will anyone be held accountable, or was this just another exercise in showing Americans that the most powerful people in this country can do whatever it is they want and get away with it? Trump says he wants Obama held accountable. We'll see what actually happens. Joining us next is someone who's followed this story since the beginning. Nebojša Mališ is a longtime columnist for antiwar.com and RT America, now a journalist based in Belgrade, Serbia. His work can be found on Substack, Telegram, and X. And today he's here with us to break this all down. He's been following the Russiagate hoax from the very beginning, done extensive research and reporting on it. He knows all of the details. Nebojša, welcome to the show. Thank you so much for being here.
Thanks for inviting me.
Okay, explain for dummies Russiagate. And the reason, okay, I want us kind of, if we can, I mean, you've done extensive work on Russiagate, and you know about the latest drop with Tulsi Gabbard and the latest implications. But a lot of people have not been following Russiagate. A lot of people are fairly new to independent media and alternative voices, and they were still in the mainstream bubble in 2016. Right? They were still gobbling up what CNN was spitting out. And what CNN was spitting out at that time was Russia, Russia, Russia. Donald Trump was elected because of Russia. Trump is saying there's some Russiagate hoax. No, he's wrong. You had Rachel Maddow out there. We've got the documents. We've got his tax returns. We're going to expose the fact he's being paid by the Russians. He's on the take. And nothing was ever found. So let's kind of start from the beginning so that people understand the whole background of Russiagate, if you don't mind, and then we can say, okay, what was this latest drop? What did it reveal?
So at the heart of this is something that I guess, and this is going to sound really awful, but Adam Schiff actually phrased it best. He said, Russia hacked our democracy. That sentence is completely meaningless. It has a subject, it has a verb, it has an object, but it means nothing. Mm-hmm. It means whatever they want it to mean. And that's been the whole point all along. Let's take a step back. It's 2015. Donald Trump comes down that escalator, announces his presidential run, whips Jeb Bush in that debate, suddenly starts looking like a serious candidate. Suddenly it starts looking like the election isn't going to be between Hillary Clinton and Jeb Bush, as we were conditioned to believe at the time. Bernie Sanders starts mounting a bit of a challenge to Hillary on the Democratic side, and there's a bit of drama over that. But suddenly, Trump is a danger. And then comes the Clinton email scandal, which everybody's forgotten about. But that was sort of the prequel to Russiagate. It turned out that Hillary Clinton, while she was Secretary of State and before and after, had her government emails routed to her private email server that sat in a closet somewhere in her house in New York State and was maintained by some contractors that she hired for that purpose. And there were emails, both government and private, that were on that server. And after Benghazi, in, I believe, 2012, that was, when those American diplomats got massacred in Libya by the jihadists that were working for the United States to smuggle weapons into Syria, but that couldn't be found out, and therefore everybody was keeping mum about that. People started digging into this and found out that Clinton was using private emails. And then she had to admit that, because of the whole campaign thing, try to wave off the scandal. Jim Comey said, there's nothing to see here, move along. Well, while all of this is happening, a bunch of Democratic National Committee emails get released in the spring of 2016. And the contractor for DNC, an outfit called CrowdStrike, run by a I believe a Ukrainian emigre, Dmitry Alperovich, announces that this was totally Russia that did it. No evidence. They say this was Russia. The FBI never looks at the servers, never touches any of the evidence, and says, well, they told us it was Russia, so it's Russia. The emails get released through a really obscure sort of DC Leaks blog that gets eventually censored and shut down. And they sort of reveal all sorts of really petty, weird things inside the Democratic Party, how the party was framing the election for Hillary, stealing it from Bernie Sanders, sort of suppressing his candidacy. A lot of dirty laundry that would normally qualify as an October surprise, but at that point, there was already all sorts of stuff floating around anyway. But because it dovetails into the Clinton email scandal, it poses a danger, or at least that's what Hillary's campaign people think. And so what emerges is that she coordinated with her campaign people that they will accuse Trump of ties to Russia. Because at one point, at a press conference, he makes a joke. Russia, if you have these emails, please release them. He didn't mean the DNC emails. He meant Hillary's emails from the private server in her closet. It was perfectly obvious that's what he meant, because that was the context in which he was answering the question. I was a journalist at the time. I was listening to the presser. I mean, I was covering Obama's presidency. I was covering the campaign, both Hillary and Trump. So I knew exactly what he was saying because I listened to the raw press conference. Yeah. But the media that were broadcasting it were like, oh, look, Trump is colluding with Russia to hack the Democratic Party. Because that's how it was presented. None of it was true. So what happens is the seeds of this narrative that Trump is somehow colluding with Russia were planted in the public. What follows is months of the media repeating DNC talking points claiming that Trump is somehow colluding with Russia. These are coming from a file put together by a British spy named Christopher Steele. We don't know that yet. That's not going to be disclosed until the end of the year. Meanwhile, John Podesta's private emails, Gmails, get hacked. Who did it? We don't know. All we know is that WikiLeaks starts publishing them. And in the middle of this whole thing with Podesta's emails emerging and all sorts of colorful details from spirit cooking onto, Al-Qaeda's on our side, to all sorts of stuff that's in there that Hillary's people are. There was a famous email in which they talk about how Maggie Haberman, who was at Politico at the time, is a friendly journalist that they tee up stories with all the time. And then she moved to the New York Times and pretended that nothing untowardly happened. Podesta emails were never denied. People de facto confirmed that they were authentic. They just claimed that Russians hacked them without any evidence whatsoever. And they kept getting released by WikiLeaks, not anybody else, just WikiLeaks. So whoever had hacked or leaked the DNC stuff was posting them on a separate site. But WikiLeaks is the one that ended up airing the Podesta stuff. And from the Podesta stuff that validated the DNC stuff, it became obvious that the DNC is crooked. This is where the pedal hits the metal and the Democrats basically say, this is Russia. Why? Because Julian Assange had a show on RT at one point before he got stuck at the Ecuadorian embassy. And because RT ended up publishing one of these drops, allegedly according to the American media, before it was even publicly released. Now, I can confirm here and now that this is 100% false, because I was working that day. And I'm the one who spotted the drop. Because it was morning, we were looking for news, and I basically said, why don't we check WikiLeaks? They could have dropped something by now. And they did. And we covered that drop. It was one of my editors was like, yeah, let's run with this. I was working at RT America at the time. Again, we were covering this because it was our job. Everybody else was covering the Podesta leaks because there was stuff in there. There was newsworthy stuff in there. And we didn't get it before it was made public. We got it because we refreshed the page. Anybody else could have done that, but they didn't bother. I think it was a day of some sort of juicy sports or celebrity scandal, so everybody was hitting refresh on that. And we were focusing on the WikiLeaks stuff because we didn't do celebrity gossip.
Yeah.
Anyway, so all of a sudden, the existence of RT dovetails into the whole thing, and it becomes this huge deal. I was at both the Republican and the Democratic convention that year. This is 2016, July, back to back, working both. I got to see Trump speak in person. I got to see Hillary speak in person. I was one of the few people that got accreditations. And I happened to be at the DNC in the media tent taking a break because it was bloody hot in Philadelphia. It was, late July. It gets warm. It was over 100 degrees. I was wearing a black shirt and I got a little heat exhausted and I was sipping water in the media tent because we were in the AP Reuters International Wires tent off to the side of the venue because there wasn't enough room at the Philly arena. And all of these, CNN, MSNBC, they all had their own pavilions off to the side, converted restaurants and whatever, like elite locations, so they could do their own thing. But they had no touch with the actual public on the ground or inside the perimeter. And in comes storms about 50 to 100 people, Sanders delegates, who were frustrated and angry that Clinton basically won the convention by acclamation, even though they were hoping for a roll call vote. And they were pissed. And they were going to talk to whoever held up a camera in their face. And so we did. I literally stood there with a microphone and interviewed people. And then I tweeted about it. Mm-hmm. And our social media producers in Washington were like, let's pay Twitter $5 to promote this. And it was promoted. And it was seen by maybe 50 people more than it would normally have because I had a tiny account at the time. And they retweeted it at RT's main account with my video, gave me credit. And this was all normal. This is 2016. This is America. This is all normal stuff. And this ends up in the congressional report on Russian interference in our democracy as an example of some sort of malign foreign influence. I'm like, guys, this is all above board. This is journalism. I regret that you can't recognize journalism if it slaps you on the face with a frozen fish. But there's nothing untoward here. We were just doing journalism. But this is the climate that this whole Russiagate thing created. And then, I know I'm sort of going on tangents here. And then when Trump wins, to the shock of the entire mainstream media establishment that was giving Clinton 99% chance of winning, somebody pushes the Russiagate button and immediately says, well, this was Russian interference. That itself isn't quite yet Russiagate, though. What makes Russiagate is in December, the heads of the intelligence agencies, like Director of National Intelligence, Clapper, Director of FBI, Comey, and Director of CIA, Brennan, as well as a whole bunch of Obama advisors, sit down in the White House and literally have a conference at which they say, we need to put together an intelligence community assessment that Russia interfered in the election. Mm-hmm. According to this latest Gabbard drop, which is very, very important, she documents, as the new head of Office of the Director of National Intelligence, that prior to this December 8 meeting, this December 8, December 9, the intelligence community's official position is that there was no Russian interference. Indirect, direct, changing votes, nothing happened. Mm-hmm. Clapper, Comey, and Brennan put together a task force of select few operatives who basically cooked the books between then and the end of December or early January, compiled this completely new report that is actually incredibly thin. The public version of it has like 30-something pages, of which 12 are them complaining about RT and bringing up this report on what RT was doing in 2012, completely unrelated to anything in 2016. Very thin on evidence, but what they're doing is they're putting together insinuendo, feeding into the media frenzy, and the key part of this, the key component that's underlying this entire thing is the so-called Steele dossier, which hasn't been made public yet. It's been sort of teased to the media, teased to the public through select outlets to create an impression that there was something between Trump and Russia. It's all insinuation plus innuendo, intended to deceive the public into believing, well, nothing in particular, because there's nothing in particular there. It's just they want to have this general feeling that Russia hacked our democracy. And based on this, everything every political screw-up, act of censorship and repression that we've seen over the past almost 10 years can be traced to this big lie. Now, what these new documents show, with beyond reasonable doubt in my mind, that it was President Obama who ordered this to be done. Him and none other. Joe Biden was in on it as his VP, Susan Rice as his most senior political advisor, all of the aforementioned heads of intelligence agencies, with the notable exception of Admiral Rogers over at the NSA, who grudgingly went along with it, but he was basically saying, well, none of this is substantiated by our signals intelligence. The NSA pretty much hears and sees all. And when Rogers is saying this, they should have listened to him. But no, he was ignored. And it was Brennan, Comey, and Clapper who basically put this big lie together. And it was made public January 6th of the next year, 2017, after Trump was elected, confirmed. He's now in queue to be inaugurated. And boom, Russiagate drops. Russia hacked our democracy. And all of a sudden, he's starting on the back foot. The Michael Flynn operation is already underway. The Carter Page operation is already underway. The steps are being set for what would become the Mueller investigation, the special counsel investigation. And stuff is already underway to prep for the 2019 Ukraine impeachment. We just don't know it yet.
Hey guys, thank you for watching this clip from the full Kim Iverson Show, which you could check out Monday through Friday, 5 p.m. Eastern at KimIversonShow.com. See you there.